I had $700 to my name, and I walked into the IRS tax office over on Sarno. It's not there anymore. It's where it used to be. And I said, I think I owe you guys a bunch of money. And they're like, what? Write your name and social security number down there and come back tomorrow. So I went back in the next day. They put me in this like locked, padded room with bulletproof glass where they ruin people's lives.
Really?
And they're like, yeah, so you owe $36,000
Wow.
in tax debt.
So that's a good start right there, though. I don't have any audio. Just there we go. I can hear myself.
Yep.
That's the life of an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Where all these things where you know, are you the type of person that just has tons of ideas running through your head?
It's constant. Yes, it's too many.
And how do you manage that?
I think there's the discipline of, is the time now? Should I do this? Right? And having some filters of why you should do whatever it is. So like, for example, when I first started RPS, I would have so many ideas that I would have to sit down, write out the idea, write a business plan. Sometimes I would design a logo and print the business cards for that idea, and then I would put it on the shelf. And that would let me stop thinking about it.
Wait, this is when you first started RPS?
Because I knew I needed to focus on RPS, and I had other ideas.
Right.
And so literally for a while, I would have new team members come on, and they'd be in the closet, and they'd, what are these business cards? I'm like, oh, that's just for a business idea. It's nothing. It's just I needed to print them.
When did you first start having kind of this? How young were you when you kind of recognized? I don't even know if it's recognized, but when you just first started starting building business and started building ideas.
Well, my first one when I was 8, because I started a strawberry patch. So when I was 8, we worked in the family business. It was a nursery and a landscaping business, and we'd made like $1 an hour or something like that. And I saved up mine. And I said, "Can I buy a bunch of the strawberry plants?" And my dad said, "Well, why would you want to buy the strawberry plants?" And so I want to start a little business, and so I bought like 100 strawberry plants from my dad because he had the wholesaler connections and stuff. And I planted 100 strawberry plants in the back, and that year I had a harvest, and I just sold them to neighbors, to the soccer team, to little league parents, whatever. I think I sold them for like $1 a pint or something. And I made $80 that first year. And then the next year I spent the whole 80 and I bought all more plants. And then I just kept, every year I built my strawberry patch up more. And so that was my first entrepreneurial venture. I think the 4th year, a frost killed all my plants. And I was like, I'm not doing any more perishable products. And I was like, 12? I'm like, this sucks. I'm not doing perishable products anymore.
But you stuck with it for 4 years.
Yeah.
From 8 to 12, you grew strawberries and you sold some. How big of distribution did you have?
It was,
still you
neighbors and friends and the soccer team and the little league team and stuff like that.
Why did you do it? What was the drive for it? Were you bored? Like, what was the drive for you just being so?
I liked the business ideas. Ever since I was a kid, I've always liked the concept of business and entrepreneurs. And I was really big into computer games, and I had some games that I really liked that were business related. There was a game that I was playing when I was I don't know how old I was, but little. I was playing this game called Capitalism, which is a business simulator. And it's like supply chains and businesses and retail and manufacturing. And I remember showing my cousin. My cousin was much older than me, and he told my dad, like, "Your son's playing a college level simulation. What is going on?"
At what age?
I mean, I was like 12. That kind of stuff was interesting to me. Like the concept of businesses and supply chains and retail and marketing and all that stuff was interesting to me.
This was the equivalent of like me playing the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Yes.
Right where I'm at. And so you were just like mapping out.
I was playing business simulations and stuff. Yeah, that was interesting to me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So where was this? Where did you grow up?
Pennsylvania. So I was born in Pittsburgh. When I was like 8, we moved out to Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania. Population 700. To this day, I think it's population 694 because my family moved away. And so little itty bitty town, middle of nowhere. I was homeschooled, home churched. The nearest neighbor was measured in acres away, not you could not see their house from our house, and that's where I grew up. That's where I grew up.
You grew up like I grew up. I don't know if you know this. I grew up very similar.
Okay, no, I don't think I knew that.
In Michigan, similar, almost identical in some level. I think town of 300.
Okay, so you actually beat me.
I got you beat.
Nobody ever beats me.
Medina, Michigan.
Okay.
It was predicted to be a big town because it had a mill in the late 1800s, and a flood came and knocked the mill away.
Interesting.
And then it flatlined.
It never went anywhere.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. 300. Yeah, you beat my 700.
And you probably had Amish.
Oh yeah.
The Amish people. Yeah.
They'd go by and poop on the road.
Yeah.
Not the Amish, the horses.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got to clarify for people who don't know the scenario. I'm fascinated by Amish people, and they make great food.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had some neighbors that we interacted with that were Amish right around the corner.
So what? So jumping ahead, where I know you, just for context, I know you. I moved to this area 5 years ago, and I heard about RPS. You guys are kind of the central lead agency in the area. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're arguably the biggest agency. Which is an impressive. Yeah, no, it's an obvious feature, and you're kind of like, how did this? And then after being here for 5 years, I'm like, how did this guy build a huge agency here? I'm finding this place so hard to gain traction in. Yeah, how did you do that? So how do you get here, and what goes on? And I know you've had some road that has brought you here that has had some bumps. Can you kind of talk to me about that?
Yeah. So through my teens, I continued to have entrepreneurial little things, right? I had another plant business. I had those died also. So that was definitely no more perishable products. And then I got into web design, and web design was really the path that led me to where I was going. So I really enjoyed programming. I started programming when I was 11. When I was 14, I started experimenting with web programming, and I discovered web design. And so I started freelancing online. And then fast forward a few more years, I had built a lawn care business up north with my brother. And we used to come down in the winters, my whole family, because there wasn't a lot of work in the winters in Pennsylvania for landscaping when there's snow on the ground. And so we'd come down, get odd jobs. That year we decided to bring the lawn care equipment down. And we built a little business over the winter, cutting lawns. We were staying with my aunt and uncle. My whole family was down here. My dad was doing odd jobs, landscaping, things like that. Meanwhile, I was freelancing. Web design online. I'd found little odd jobs to do little projects and stuff. And I got plugged into a church here. It was a little Calvary chapel that's not around anymore, but it was a beautiful little Calvary chapel, wonderful community. I got plugged into that and just really found a community here. I'm basically the only extrovert in a family of introverts, and grew up in a little town, like I said, homeschooled, home churched. And I'm an extrovert, right? And so I come here and I'm like, people, yay! I got plugged into the church. I got plugged into a lot of stuff in the community, and just really, I was like, I'm staying. And so I made the decision to stay. And it was funny because
wait, this is at 14?
So no, I'm sorry. Fast forward, I'm 18 at this point.
Okay, 18.
I jumped ahead there, and so I'm saying I'm going to stay. And my family thought about it, like, we're going to stay too. So we all moved down. When I was 18, and I ran the lawn care business for about a year, and realized that a lawn care business in Florida in the summer sucks. It's awful. It's not good. And so I gave the business
for obvious reasons. The heat.
Yes.
Right. The heat.
It was brutal. And so it's actually a great business here, but it's just brutal. And so I gave the business to my brother and said, hey, have fun with that. And
is he still running it?
He ran it for a couple more years, and then he sold it. I never got a cut out of that, but it's fine.
Yeah, shout out to your brother. Hey, you need to come up. You need to.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I very gratefully gave that away. I did not want to do that business. Yeah. But so from there, I actually went to work with a construction company for a year. I was a gentleman I knew from our church, and he needed a foreman. He's like, I need somebody who can talk to my clients, and none of my employees can talk to my client. I need you to be able to come run a crew. So I don't know anything about construction. He's like, come and learn. So I did that for a year. Meanwhile, I started getting the freelancing going a little bit more. on that side. So after I did that for a year, again, most people would not guess I ran two construction crews for a year. I have fun stories, a lot of fun stories there. And that is when I decided to then really dive into the marketing world. Then I was just web design. And so I had a good friend of mine from church.
And what year are we at this point?
Well, I'm still about 18, 19. So I would have been 19 or so now. And this would be, gosh, when was this? This is like 20 years ago, right? Because I'm 37 now, so 19 years ago.
So 2005.
Something like that. 2005, 2006.
And web design was still kind of in its...
It was still on the rise for sure.
On the rise.
WordPress was becoming more prevalent. We were seeing that used a lot more. At the time, I had my own custom built framework that I was using. Eventually had to, WordPress kind of took over a lot of that stuff from a CMS platform. And so I had a friend from church bring me to the Chamber of Commerce. It was at the Cocoa Beach Chamber of Commerce. And I didn't know what a Chamber of Commerce was, really. Okay. And at that first Chamber of Commerce, I met a gentleman named Richard Martin. And actually, I was introduced to Richard. Richard did a lot in the area in marketing, digital marketing. He was doing websites, him and his wife. And that was my big break. So Richard became a dear friend and a mentor of mine. He recently passed, and so definitely want to honor him. Without Richard, there is no Rock, Paper, Simple. Mm-hmm. Hands down, I give him that. He mentored me. He gave me that first break. Right, that first break. He taught me a lot of things about integrity. Taught a lot of things about how to treat vendors, treat people. Just a really cool guy. He just recently passed, and so that was hard. But if you go on my Facebook just a week or two ago, you'll see a tribute that I did to him. Real awesome guy. And we met. I remember he was sitting in this big back chair because it was a Wednesday Friends Day with the chamber, and I guess he was having some back issues. So he was sitting in this chair, and people were coming to him. And I just remember thinking, who is this guy that's sitting in this high back chair that people keep coming to? And he's like, hey, you're doing websites, great. I could use some help. Invited me down to their office to talk about a deal he thought he had for me. And I went over to their office later that week, and I just remember him saying, I got these 2 websites I need to build, and he's like, I need them built, designed, the whole deal, right? So I was going to have to design them and build them. He was going to provide the words and the copy, and he's like, what would you charge me? And I'm like, I don't know. I've only done freelance online. I made a few bucks here. This was my first real gig, and I had no idea. And I'm on the spot. My heart's racing, and I said $250 each. $250 for each one. I was going to design and build them, right? I had no idea. And
that's the worst. Just to interject, yeah. I think that's on the scope of entrepreneurship and pricing.
So hard. I've learned a lot now in terms of how to get to a price, but I had no idea. And he laughed at me and he said, I'll give you $500 each. And so he doubled my price for me.
He was an honorable man. He's like, listen, I'm going to get a good deal at $500. So,
I'm sure
you clearly don't know what you're bidding.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure his margin was astronomical even with that number. Right. Yeah. Compared
now that
I know, right? Now that I know. And I remember those first 2 projects like, oh my gosh, this was a lot of work. It was a lot of work for those 2 websites. And that really got my career going. I did a lot of work with them. And the cool thing was about every 2 weeks, he and I would meet up, and he'd pay me in cash for the work that I did for him that week. And then there'd be a little mentor session. And then, we used to meet at the CVS in Rockledge. And the joke was that people were going to think we were doing a drug deal because we would pull up to the CVS, and we'd get out of our cars. He'd hand me an envelope with cash in it, and we'd talk for a little bit and then leave. And that was always the joke. But I mean, that guy coached me through business stuff, personal stuff, relationship advice. I mean, we really connected. And so he helped coach me through a lot of things. And I did that for about 3 years, worked with him in the community, got real involved in the chambers of commerce. I was this young kid in the chamber. And back then, I like to comment today, I see a lot more young people in the chambers of commerce today. When I was there, there was nobody even close to my age.
Yeah.
I was 18.
It was like going 19. To the Catholic Church.
There was no one anywhere near.
I'm not slamming on the Catholic Church.
There was no one near my age there, right? And again, it's kind of cool seeing a lot of the young professionals nowadays, but I was just figuring it out. And I ran my own little web design business for 3 years. I built an office in my parents' garage, and I did that for 3 years. So I get the parents' garage story, which is fun.
You're a little bit of Steve Jobs.
A little bit of the Steve Jobs garage story. So I did that for 3 years, and then I ended up doing a lot of work with a marketing firm in Titusville. Creative Techniques was the name of it. And it was a 25-year-old agency. It had recently been acquired by one of the employees, and she had taken over. And I started doing a lot of work with her. And so I was freelancing, same as kind of like with Richard. I was doing a lot of work with her, and all of a sudden realized a lot of my revenue was coming from this one source. Worked on a lot of clients there as like a white label web solution. And after a while, she approached me and said, "Hey, would you want to merge businesses? You know, I've got a traditional agency. You've got a kind of this web business. Let's merge, bring you in." So I did. Ended up merging businesses. Went to Titusville, became a partner in that agency, had employees for the first time. So that was really wild. And it wasn't what I thought. I came into that business, realized that there was no money, that the company was kind of in trouble. Phones hadn't been answered in 3 weeks. Clients were all angry, and my partner disappeared for about a month or
Right
two.
afterwards.
Right afterwards. So basically what I realized later was, this was your last-ditch effort at saving your company, was to bring me in. Meanwhile, I was told a whole different story. I've got $40,000 to do a marketing campaign, but I want my partner on board first. And I was too young and stupid to really realize I was getting bamboozled. So I kind of went with it and pushed through and dealt with the clients. I met with the clients. I called them back, apologized. "Hey, I'm a new partner. I'm trying to make things right. Tell me what was it that you needed again? Tell me what was it that was promised to you?" And so just kind of figuring things out. It was like 21. I was probably 21.
I have to tell you, one mistake I've made as an entrepreneur. It's good for you to learn that lesson young.
Yeah.
I started kind of going out on my own later. I tried multiple times, but not to get lost down that rabbit hole. By the time I just committed that I'm going to do this, for years I had like a I don't know if it'd be called savior complex, but I was looking for like someone to save me or partner with me. Partner with me, and we'll do this together because, it's so hard. Building a business is such a lonely process.
Yeah. Painfully
lonely. There's no end to the amount of work. You have to create your own boundaries, and the boundaries are managed by you. So so there's a ton of variables, and you're always looking for like, if I could just get that one person to do this thing, and then you're like, partner with me, work with me. And so it sounds to me like maybe she was like a little bit of that, where she's like, this kid will save me, and we'll grow it together. But it sounds tragic that she disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was tragic.
It was really difficult. She ended up coming back after a month or two, and I think she just needed to go sleep and maybe recover. And she came back, and we went off to the races, and we started building the business, and definitely started getting it back on track. Things were going well. I remember I knew nothing about print materials and all that stuff. I got a call. There was a lot of print there, and they asked for reprint of their letterhead and envelope on linen. I said, "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. I'll get that ordered for you." And I hang up, and I'm like, "Linen? Bed sheets? Like, what's linen?" It's a fancy paper, I found out. And so like learning that kind of stuff. Like I didn't know any of that lingo, right? I was a web designer. I was a programmer. And so I had to rapidly learn all the branding stuff and whatnot. And she came back, and I operated that business with her for about 3 years. Ups and downs. She would get in and kind of piss off all the clients, and then I'd have to go apologize, and it was this whole cycle.
But that's interesting you say that, because I feel like sometimes I make those mistakes. How do you? What would be maybe not so much as an anecdote, but like what would be what's a personality characteristic like that? That's that would what was her downfall, I guess, when it came to pissing off clients, and what did you have that was an asset that was kind of like fixing it?
Really, probably we should have just said, okay, don't talk to clients anymore. You go just design stuff and do your job, do your work. Let me talk to the clients, because I just was better at talking to clients. I was better at listening. I was better at hearing them out. I was better at not overpromising. I'm just good with people, right? And I do think people is my superpower. I'm very good at working with people, building people up. I've always had on my wall ever since I started RPS, empower talented people is like my job. Right, that's my main thing, and I think if we had realized, oh, okay, one of us is better at actually interacting with the people, hearing them, and making sure there's a customer service aspect, not overpromising, then we probably should have just stuck with that. And I think that was something I didn't know. And frankly, I was younger. I didn't know the business as well. I was kind of trying to follow her lead. And I don't know that I had enough experience at that point to have taken lead anyways, right? But what I know now, I would have said, okay, you focus, you're a brilliant designer, you're a great strategic thinker. She was super intelligent, but she just needed to not be put in front of the client. And in fact, she was razzle dazzle. So from a sales perspective, cool. But
she could put on a show.
Yes. But then she wasn't really good with that client relationship long term. So that was just, and not picking on her, that was just not her strength, right? Yeah. And where it was my strength. And so we probably should have leaned into that, identified what we were, what the strengths were, yeah. and then lean into that. Instead, it was just more of getting frustrated with each other, right? Because neither of us, I think, had enough business experience to understand that part of it.
You're like, I'm doing all this work and building this up, and you're tearing it down.
Exactly. And I know she wasn't intentionally tearing it down, but so there's all of that. And so after 3 years, there was a little bit of a inconsistency in ownership and workload. And I basically said, hey, listen, like I need to be a full 50% partner, because I was a smaller partner because her business was bigger than mine when we merged. But I was doing a lot of the work. I was doing all the sales. That's not fair. I was doing most of the sales. I was doing all the networking. Most of the leads being brought in were me, right, out in the community. And I did all of the networking. And I was also doing a lot of the business stuff. And I was like, listen, I just can't do this anymore being a minor partner. I need to be full 50-50. And frankly, I want to be president because I'm the one that's more engaged. And so we had a little negotiation. We agreed to it. I became president. My name went on as president of the agency, which was just in time for me to get the check get the invoice from the IRS saying you haven't paid taxes in like 4 or 5 years. So all of a sudden I start looking. It was
ding,
literally
ding, ding, ding,
yes.
ding.
So all of a sudden, now that I'm president, guess who's liable for all of that? So I get this letter from the IRS, and I'll take it. I'm like, what is this? And she's like, I don't know. And we hadn't paid any payroll taxes since she had owned the business. So all of a sudden, all these back taxes and all the penalties are piling.
Is there an estimated number?
It was 10,000 is what they said. So it was 10 grand.
Okay. But that's probably a big amount at that time.
Yeah, well, and we were a $250,000 company. We did about 250,000 in revenue. So 10 grand, think about the margins on marketing. It's not, margins aren't huge. Right. So, and we did a lot of print with that too. So 10 grand was okay. That's not good. So I'm like, we didn't have that. We didn't have that, right? I was already I made more money per year in my parents' garage than I made the whole time working with her. That was how, we were just reinvesting it, and it wasn't very profitable. It wasn't so.
Were you kicking yourself the whole time? I should have stayed in the garage.
No, I mean, there were definitely days, but I look at it was a huge learning lesson, because I went from a programmer to a marketer during that period of time, right? So I used to like to joke that was my college education, because I did go to college for 2 semesters and got bored and dropped out. So there's that whole story of.
Well, you could have done my path, which was just fail out.
I was a 4.0 student. I
wasn't. I was bored. I was bored, but I stayed.
I was just. It just had. They were teaching me stuff I already knew. I'll put it this way: I was offered my teacher's job my first semester. They said, "Hurry up and get your degree because this job is, no." So I dropped out. So I look at that time as like my college education, and so I was like, well, we got 10 grand, we got to pay it. So I went in a matter of, I think they gave us 30 days to pay it. So in a matter of a couple of weeks, I went out and I sold $20,000 worth of stuff, and got $10,000 worth of down payments, and paid it off.
Wow.
Paid it off. Okay, done. And
is that something that you can kind of turn on and turn off a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, it's that go. I got to go. This has got to happen. So I'm just going to go get it. And I went and I made it happen. I went and sold the stuff and I got the down payments.
But you can't maintain that pace in a sense.
I mean, there's definitely been times I have. Early days, especially with RPS. I mean, the thing is, the numbers just get bigger, right? So it's less. It's the same amount of deals typically. It's just the numbers get bigger, right? Back then, going and generating 20K in a matter of weeks I had to do that. Fast forward 12 years and overhead numbers start to cross 6 figures, and you got to go get 100K, not 20K, right?
Yeah.
Like that has happened. I've literally been, fast forwarding, a decade. Oh, how am I going to pay for next month's overhead, which happens to be in the six-figure range.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to go sell $100,000 worth of stuff. And in fact, it's more than that because cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I've definitely done that. I've had times in the past where I have a $300,000 with gap, and I've like, I got to go find it. And that's a lot of sales. That's a lot of sales to do in a few months. And we've done it. I mean,
and where do you think that, what, like for me, if I had that, I probably would, and this goes to what you're talking about skills, like know what your skills are, your superpowers, blah, blah. For me, when I hear you say that, it's like I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, how would you know who you're going to go for? And then how would you, not get greedy and overreach and close the deal and do it again and again and again and again.
It's a balance.
Because for me, like I end up getting in a situation like that and I want to make it up with one customer.
Right.
And then I piss them off and I have 0 customers.
Yeah, I mean, for sure it's not one customer all the time. I mean, sometimes the Lord provides and you close that big deal. I mean, there was a period a few years back in RPS where we had, like I said, a couple $100,000 gap. We got to catch this up over the next few months or this isn't going to work. And I closed several really large deals that came out of nowhere, right? And it was just being faithful, keeping after it, pushing hard. And we had an opportunity arise. It was the largest sale I've ever made, $250,000. And it was a 2-year execution period, but it was biggest sale I've ever made in one go. That doesn't always happen, right? But yeah, so it's sometimes when, I think for me, it's when it's go time because I've got to, right? And I think early days, that was actually a blessing in disguise. When I sat there and I'm like, I owe the IRS 10 grand, or they're going to come take everything. Okay, I have to do this, right? And I went and did it. The crazy part of that story is right after I paid it, another letter came in. You owe another $10,000 in back taxes. And that's what threw up my red flags. And I went, wait a minute, how long have you not been paying the taxes? And that's when I found out it was never, basically. And I started looking at it. We owed a lot more taxes. So then I started looking at the finances and I started finding some embezzlement and some shady stuff with the money with my partner. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. Like, not only have you been evading taxes for the last 5 years, you did not tell me about, but you've been pocketing money that was ours, right? And so notably, she borrowed my car one time, wrecked it, and then promised to pay for it, and then took cash out of the business after telling me she did not, and then paid for it, and then tried to hide it. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's I'm like, it's the exact amount that my car damage was that you said you paid for. So that kind of stuff started happening. So basically, I had two options: sewer or leave. So I left. I'm like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to go fight the legal battle. So this was 2012. I resigned as president of my own company, resigned as representing agent, and handed it over to her and said, it's yours. I'm out. And so I at the end of 2012, I was 25. I had $700 to my name, and I walked into the IRS tax office over on Sarno. It's not there anymore. It's where it used to be. And I said, I think I owe you guys a bunch of money.
Wow.
And they're like, what? What are you? Who are you? Give me, write your name and social security number down there and come back tomorrow. Like, nobody walks in here. That's not a thing. So I went back in the next day. They put me in this like locked, padded room with bulletproof glass where they ruin people's lives.
Really?
And they're like, yeah, so you owe $36,000
Wow.
in tax debt.
In a company that you kind of didn't even, you
Yeah.
just kind of traded sweat equity for,
basically.
for the most part?
Yeah, basically. And the problem was I had become president, so the larger percentage of it went to me because I had just become president. Had I not insisted I become president, she would have had the larger percentage. But instead, I took, even though it was incurred while she was president, because I was liable as president, I got the larger percentage. And so I said, okay, here's the deal. I literally told the IRS agent, I said, I have $700 to live on. Like, that's what I have. I'm starting a new business. I have a really cool idea to start this rock, paper, simple thing. And I'm going to pay you off in a year. Pay it off in a year. I said, but right now, can I make payments? They said, yes. What kind of payment can you afford? And I said, $50 a month. They said, okay. So we signed the deal that I was going to pay them $50 a month, but
One nice thing about the government, they don't know how to manage or collect on money.
I think they were just like, you're here. We don't have to chase you. So sure, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
And I mean, I was young. I was 25. I was completely.
It was honorable. That's an honorable thing. I mean, that takes a lot of bravery. I'll be honest. Like, it takes a certain amount of bravery. It shows that you should have a certain ethic level where you're just like, there are things that I want in life, and I don't want to be chained down by like things that my past.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So signed all that. Went and started Rock Paper Simple. I put a few $100 in the RPS account, and I launched it. Got my first few deals in the chamber to kind of fund it. And I rolled into 2013. 2013, January 1 was the official launch date of Rock Paper Simple. Really got its traction in March. I had my first office space in October of that year.
Where was that at?
That was on Sarno Road. And it was
How big was
upstairs building, was like 1,100 square feet. Upstairs rent was like $700, something like that.
Just you?
Just me. I built out a full office space for a full team, and it was just me.
Wow.
Because I was building the brand. And so I'd bring, here's the tour, and here's the development office, and here's the admin office, and here's my office.
Would you just like have your wife sit in different seats? Sit in there.
I wasn't married. I was
you were
single.
Yeah.
I was single.
You would just bring in actors. Just sit there for an hour.
Well, a lot of these conversations are happening after hours, right? People.
Right.
So they would just assume.
Smart.
I did not lie.
No.
I never said I had staff.
No, it's very. It's smart actually. I have a ton of words, but I mean, I think I get where you're going. It wasn't unethical.
I just positioned it. It was all about branding.
Yeah.
I traded with a local designer. I said, I'll build you a website if you make me a logo. So I had a beautiful logo, and I had these plastic business cards that I would hand out, and it was all brand. And the funny thing is, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was really had a really strong brand from the get-go. Did the orange thing, owned orange. I did orange tie everywhere I went. That was my thing.
Orange is your thing.
Orange is my thing.
This guy's the orangest guy. For those people who have never been to his office, he painted it all caution cone orange.
It's all orange everywhere.
It's amazing.
I wanted a color I could own, right? Yeah. And I was like, I can own orange. This community could know me for orange, and that was the thing, right? Now I got the jacket, and I have shirts with orange buttons, and I have the whole thing. But that was the kind of the spin. And I remember I negotiated 3 months free rent because I had no money, and I was literally basically at this point, I think I had about $100 in my bank account at any given time. I was cranking it. And I remember the fourth month came along, and I owed that $700 rent check, and I had $25 in my bank account. $25. And I wrote that rent check for $700, and I put it in the mail, and
you knew it was going to bounce.
Well, no, I was not going to let it bounce. So this was go time.
So you're like, I have 2 days to get this.
Yes. So literally, I put that in the mailbox, and I said, I have to go get a check.
This is ballsy.
Oh, this was probably, yeah. And then I drove to the Wednesday Friends Day.
You have so much faith. Like, you have a certain amount of confidence, but also faith that things are going to work out. I can't even. I am so scared in general. Money scares the hell out of me.
Yep.
Anyways, continue. But I'm
worth mentioning. Faith is a huge part of my life. I was a youth pastor for 3 years at that Calvary Chapel. When I started Rock Paper Simple, my first 5 months, every single morning at 5:30 in the morning, I was out at the Wickham Park back pond on the dock on my knees praying for 5 months, every single day for the first 5 months of RPS. I probably should have kept doing it. But
yes, I would,
right?
I concur.
And my prayer was, bless it or kill it. Bless it or kill it was every single morning I would pray with the turtle. There was a turtle that would come up every morning right there.
Really?
Every morning, yeah. And
that is so cool. That is, I mean,
every morning.
I'm a romantic, so this is like I have this picture in my mind. That's the turtle.
Almost
pieces.
Every morning he would come up.
Yeah, it's like the old man mentor coming up.
Yeah, right.
It's like God himself.
Right. And I just bless it or kill it. Either bless this business wildly or just kill it. I don't want to waste any more time. Because I felt like I just lost 3 years, right? And I was like, I don't want to take 3 more years to build what I had. I want it to go faster. Bless it or kill it. And he blessed it. And so I remember that putting that check in the mail and going, all right, and I drove to the chamber event, and I knew I had to walk out, not with a deal, not with a lead, a check, because I already sent the other check. And so I've never done this before or since, but I literally sold a website at the chamber event. I don't even remember to who. And they wrote me a check for $1,250 for half of the down payment.
Right there.
Who brings their checkbook to a networking event? Like, I don't even know why this person had their checkbook with them to write me a check at the event. And it's not like I had been networking in that chamber for 4 years. So it wasn't like I was an unknown, but I was selling websites for more than I had sold them before. This was a $2,500 sale, and they wrote me a $1,250 check on the spot. I drove past my apartment to my office, went up, turned the light on, sat at my desk, put that check that I mobile deposited that sucker.
Right there.
Right there. And I was just like,
it's so funny that you say that. I mean, I have had a few moments where I was awake in the middle of the night going, God, I don't know how I'm going to pay mortgage this month. And most clients, like you're saying, most clients don't pay you up front. They'll pay you, if you do a 50-50, like 50 up front, 50, they'll pay you right before the work starts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I had months where I had nothing in the line, and I had literally, I remember one time they called me, like it would usually happen the next day. I'd be up at 3 a.m. I'm like, God, I don't know how this is going to happen. Help me out. And the next morning I'd get a call and be like, and I remember specifically one time going, and do you mind if we pay you up front? And I'm like, who minds if you pay them up front? No, Right. So those moments are special, and you're kind of like a manifestation of like something greater than yourself is happening.
Agreed. Yeah. And I can point at all the God stories, the times when it was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I mean, in this office in particular, I remember many times being on my knees right over there, back before this got converted into the podcast studio, and I moved in the other side of the building. This spot, I mean, right over there was my spot. I'd be pacing, and this would be the funny thing, right? I'd be pacing here, and I'm a pacer, right? I'd be pacing, I'd be stressed out, and be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and I'd be like, what am I doing? Why am I stressing about this? I just need to stop and pray. And then I'd get down on my knees at the couch, and I'd pray, and almost always within a couple days there'd be some breakthrough, right? And something that I had missed or whatever. And I attribute a lot of the success to just prayer, time in prayer, calm down, stop, ground yourself, right? But a lot of that. And so kind of getting back to the story, after that, it just kind of blew up. I did have that debt paid off in the first year for the IRS. So I did about $100,000 my first 12 months in the business. Was about $70,000 in the fiscal year, but about $100K in 12 months. And so did 70, and then I did 140, and then I doubled. So I doubled the next year. So I went from 70 in the year to 140 the following year, to doubling in half. So what does that add up to? It's like 300 and some, I think. Yeah. I can't remember. Is that right? Did I do my math right? 40, 280. Yeah, it was like 400 and some. Yeah, 420. It was 420 in my third year. And it just kept double-digit growth every year. It just blew up. And then 3 or 4 years in, I added branding. Then we added marketing. And we just continue to grow on that side of things. 2020, I remember I decided to buy Mendx Studios and add video to what we did. This was the first year we had video. And it was actually December of 2019, Justin Snyder and I shook hands and said, yes, I'm going to acquire your business. And then the lawyers took a long time to get the paperwork together. And so I'm sitting there with the paperwork on my desk, watching the news of a global pandemic. I'm like, am I really going to buy a business? I don't even know if I'm going to have a business. But I had already shook hands. He was already on the payroll. We had already done a video announcing to the world that we had merged. Legally, I didn't have to, but I had to. So I signed the deal. And it was one of the
That was your ethic. You had a certain, this goes back to your code of ethics.
Yes. Yeah. It was definitely one of those moments where I'm like, this is a terrible business decision, but your yes be a yes and your no be a no. I had said yes, I'd buy it. That was on me. Be honored, be truthful to your word, right? If you say yes, follow through.
So why, for me, like there's a part of me that wants to dive into this a little bit deeper, which is like, why do those things? Like, I have had so many business experiences where the competition or even my clients have solely looked out for themselves, time and time again. And I find I'll be honest, when I solely look out for myself, I'm so unhappy.
Oh yeah.
I find myself very unhappy. So I don't know how they do it consistently, but it's also very frustrating, and I battle with that all the time. Like, why not look out for you in this scenario? Why not go, bad, I'm going to bail on this. I know I've been promising you this for 6 months and we've already shaken on it. It's just a paper. Why?
I mean, foundationally, it's tied to my faith. I mean, I fully believe I'm called to be a man of my word, right? And that's important. At the end of the day, I started Rock Paper Simple for three main reasons, right? Besides the fact that I kind of had to do something. But at the time, I had a job offer. I had a very lucrative job offer with an agency that was very attractive. But I really felt called to do something bigger and do something bigger than myself. And I wanted to build an agency that was fair to its clients, that built an environment and was fair to its creatives, because the world isn't super nice to creatives a lot. Didn't take advantage of them, and that did good to the community, that gave back to the community, that was a light to the community, right? And I couldn't do that if I wasn't true to my faith and I wasn't true to my word, right? I was going to taint that. And so that was important to me, and it's always been important to me throughout everything that we've done. At the end of the day, our purpose statement at Rock Paper Simple is because people matter, which is a weird purpose statement for a business to have, right? It sounds like more of a nonprofit type approach. But at the end of the day, I wanted people who interacted with RPS to be better off, whether they were a client or they were a team member or whatever. And we've done that through the years. That's been a focus. It's not, it's a way that I've made a living, right? It's a way that I built my career and things like that. But it wasn't just for that purpose, right? So for example, we had chaplains for years before we went fully remote, right? The team is fully remote now. We have the creative center, and that's a whole other story. But we had chaplains that would come in twice a week and just hang out with the team, right? And be there if they wanted to talk. If they wanted to pray, they could pray. If they just wanted to talk, they could talk. They had access to them 24/7 to call them and whatever else. That wasn't a business decision. That was a people decision, right? And so to me, RPS has been a business. It needs to be a business. It has to be profitable to survive. But I never looked at it as profit for profit's sake, if that makes. I could just go get a job if I was going to do that, right? Running a business is hard. Running an agency is really hard. You don't do it just because it's the most profitable option, if that makes sense. I did it because it gave me a way to serve others. It gave me a way to build up people, et cetera. So there's more to it than just running a business. I happen to think that doing what you say builds you a loyal customer base and builds you a good name and builds you a good reputation. So I think there are some practical benefits, but a lot of it comes down to what's your motivation, what drives you, why are you doing what you're doing?
I have two thoughts. One is a testament to you a little bit. When we first met, I had just moved here, and it's kind of coming into your piece on COVID and what brought us here, because COVID kind of brought me here, and that's a longer story. But I came from Detroit, where I worked in auto. And I came from a very cynical industry. The auto agency and the agencies in Detroit, the culture is, for lack of a better word, toxic and cynical, painfully cynical, and very cutthroat. And I came from this world, and I left and started my business like 2 years before COVID. COVID hit and practically bankrupted me, and I was like, well, if I'm going to be bankrupt, I might as well be bankrupt in Florida. Everyone's digital. They'll let me. I can live wherever I want. So when I met you, I was profoundly amazed at how open you were. I was like, does this guy not know that I could completely take advantage of his openness and his willingness to be so open, because we worked on a project together, and so opening with your pricing and opening with your business structure and open with how you do things. I was like, does this guy not realize that, like, he's setting himself up to be taken advantage of, coming from where I came from, and coming from the cutthroat nature of it? Like, I would have guys hire me and be like, "You're friends with X, right?" And he's like, "Go work with him and get his book and get his people and bring it to me, and I'll give you a cut." Like, that's the dirty game. I never did that. I never played that game, but that's the game that people would play, and I would like this. So I was kind of inspired, and I was kind of amazed, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?" I was curious about you. I've been curious about you since we came here, because it's like super nice guy, completely open, not afraid to like open his book and show me everything and tell me everything that's going on with him, and make himself vulnerable to being taken advantage of. I'm like, how is he not jaded and cynical? And how is he, and it might be your faith. I don't know. I mean, what would you, in response to that, like, why are you so open after having burned?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been burned, right? I just told you one of the stories. There's been more. Certainly people do take advantage of that sometimes. At the end of the day, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with my faith. It has a lot to do with purpose, right? So why do we do what we do? I think that's maybe the question to ask. If we're just in it to make a buck, which we all have to make a living, right? We have to survive. We have to make money, right, to live. Excuse me. But at the end of the day, why? What is our why behind our life, behind the things we do? And mine happens to be grounded in my faith, my God, and loving people, right? So if you can boil down my faith as simple as it is, and you read scripture, like, it comes down to two things, right? It's love God and love people, in that order. And so if you do those two things, the rest of the law and the prophets is fulfilled, right? Is the scripture. And so, yeah, there's a lot more complexity to it. I'm not going to say, not oversimplifying it, but that really is the simplicity piece of it. And so if I can honor God in everything I'm doing, right, and I can serve and love people, then that's my purpose. That's what I do, right? And to me, if I'm doing those two things, I'm happy. I'm successful. Do I want to have a successful business? Yeah. Was I proud the first time I crossed $1 million in revenue? Yeah, I was super proud of that. But that's the vanity number, right? Like, at the end of the day, those numbers are vanity. What are you accomplishing? What are you doing? And are you accomplishing a purpose that's greater than making a few bucks? And to me, that's what I'm doing. 2 statements on my wall has been in my office since I started. And that is the empower talented people thing I told you about earlier. And then a scripture, do all to the glory of God, right? Those 2 things have been on my wall for 12 years. They were in this room on these walls for 4 years. And those 2 things, those are my 2 jobs. If I do those 2 things in a day, I feel like I've succeeded. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And why do people take advantage of creatives?
Why do they?
Yeah, why is that?
I think because creatives tend to be less business savvy and less numbers and less that they're open to that. Right? They're more creative. They're more expressive. I'm going to do all these. I want to make the pretty things. I want to make the cool things. I want to tell the stories.
It's hard to quantify.
And so therefore it's hard to price, and it's hard to understand the value of it. And it's all of those things. Creative is so easy to say, it's okay. It's okay. It's beautiful. Right. But it's one of those things where if you do a plumbing job wrong, I know you did it wrong. Like, it's wrong. It's leaking. You did it wrong. If you made a video wrong, what's wrong? Like, define wrong, right?
It's subjective.
It can be subjective, right? And so I think that's hard for creatives. And again, most of them they're not wired to think in numbers. They're not wired to think more logically most of the time. And so it's easier to take advantage of them, I feel like. And so I'm a little more wired more logically, right? And so I have that business brain. I have some of those things. And so I can provide that insight. In fairness, when I first started the business, the finances terrified me. Like, legitimately made me sick to my stomach. Like, it just freaked me out. So that was a learned skill that I had a mentor teach me stuff, right? So in fairness, I love numbers now, and I understand numbers and budgeting and cash flow, and at all times I know if we stopped selling right now, I know how long Rock Paper Simple could go before it ran out of money. Like, I know all that right off the top of my head right now. Like, I know literally how many days, maybe days is exaggeration, how many weeks we have of cash flow if I literally sold nothing else at all, right? Like, that's how well I know my numbers now, right? I can go in and I can quickly say, well, if I hired an additional person, how would that affect my numbers? And I could do all that really quickly now. Rewind 10 years ago, that was not a thing. So in fairness, it is something that can be learned by anybody. But I think, to answer your question, creatives aren't naturally, wired that way necessarily.
How did you get to the place as you're growing and you're expanding? And I know we were coming into 2020, but you were talking about your growth and your expansion, and you're moving people into place. How did you get to a place as where you go, I need somebody, and I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna take on a salary. I'm gonna take on a payroll, and I'm gonna put somebody in. How did you start to know? And then how did you know who to get? And how and maintain that game?
Oh, and it was. I mean, sometimes I made poor decisions where I was like, "All right, I'm going to hire this person because I need them to keep scaling, but I don't really have the money for them, so I'm going to have to go find the sales to do it." There was some of that happening where I was just like, "I'm going to do it." I would also be, I lived on very little myself, so I was like, as long as I could pay rent and buy some ramen, and I'm good, right? Like. I reinvested a lot. I didn't really take any money out of the business for the first 4 or 5 years, besides basic living expenses. I was also single. So mind you, that made it easier too. It was hard. You didn't always know, am I hiring too early? Basically I would just get to the point where we're totally overwhelmed. I need another body. I need another person to come in here, another brain, another creative to make this happen. I remember my first hire, the first time I hired a salesperson. Such a hard position to hire for. I started the C12 marketing affinity group about 5 or 6 years ago. And so it's a group of agencies around the country that we would get together every month and talk through challenges. And hiring a salesperson's like, everyone has that challenge. I was super blessed. First salesperson I hired was a friend of mine. He struggled. And eventually he's like, all right, this isn't working. Let me help you hire somebody else. I get introduced to Scott. You've probably run into Scott Eller in the community. He was my first sales hire. And I still remember that initial dynamic, and I was very honest with him. I'm like, hey, Scott, here's what I got. I've been doing all the sales. I've been told by a mentor I need to hire a salesperson. I have money in the bank to pay you for 3 months. And then I'm out. I'm out of money. So if you come on, just know that you might not have a job in 3 months. But I feel pretty good about you. I think you can do this. But I just want you to know that if you take this job, potentially in 3 months, you're looking again. I was just honest with him. And he goes, I love it. Let's do it. I think I can do this. And he dove in. And one of the coolest things that Scott did, and I hope he sees this, but I'll give him a draw, right? And I was like, I can't remember if it was, because it was every 2 weeks I gave him a draw. And I gave him the first check. Yep. And then 2 weeks after that, I gave him the second draw check. And he hadn't made any sales yet, if I remember correctly. It was first month, so you don't expect a salesperson to close new deals first month. So he's getting ramped up. He's getting going. And I handed him that second check. And I think it was the second check. And I put it on his desk, and I went back into my office. And he came back, and I think, if I remember correctly, he tore it. I can't remember if he tore it or just handed it to me. And he gave it back, and he says, I'll earn my own money, thank you. I'm just like, well, what do you mean? I agreed to give you a draw. Like, you got to live. And he's like, I can do it. I need the motivation. Basically, he was like, I need the motivation. I'm going to go do this. I can do this. I'm going to earn my own money. I don't want to owe you anything. And so he didn't take the draw. It was, I think, end of month 2, he started clipping, and he started killing it. And it was the rest, he from there didn't need a draw or anything else. And he started killing it. And he was with me for 7 or 8 years. I think 7 years, actually. Awesome guy. I see him in the community still. He's at Morsecom now these days. But I want to give him kudos in this story. Like, his guts of saying, no, first of all, him taking the job, even though I was honest with him and saying, I only have 3 months of draw. And it's not even that big of a draw. And him taking that, and then him later saying, I'll earn my own money, that was gutsy. That was a lot of respect there. And he was a big part of this brand for the first 7 years, because he joined in year 2, I think. Yeah. So the first.
When you're a small business, you develop very close relationships. So I'm setting up this. Next question is like, how do you know when to fire?
Oh, that's the worst.
I've heard it said it's not who you hire, it's who you fire.
In some ways, that's true. Yeah, because if you don't fire soon enough, then you're taking too long to hire the right person, right? And it's so hard. This is the thing that I like the worst, like the least about business, is letting somebody go. Because I love people. And so, like, that pastor in me comes out, right? And I want to make them feel better, and I want to love on them, and I want to coach them through it, and I want to help them find their next job. And I've done plenty of that. And sometimes that's not appropriate, right? Sometimes that's just not okay. You need to cut ties. And it's not healthy for anybody. But I have a really hard time with it. I've had to let friends go, right? And I distinctly remember coming to the conclusion that I had to let a friend go, and I didn't sleep for 4 nights leading up to the termination. I should have just let him go the day that I knew that I had to do it, but I wanted to wait till Friday. I should have just done it because I literally didn't sleep for 4 nights.
That's horrible.
And I remember getting up. It was the first thing in the morning, did the termination, cried in the termination, cried.
That's a bummer.
And then I went home and went to sleep because I hadn't slept in 4 days, And so, and then other times you got to do it. I have historically waited too long to terminate and created problems. So it's definitely a weakness of mine. I've created a lot of problems for my team and my business and my clients because I have not terminated fast enough. Because I love people and I have a hard time letting go. And one thing I had to learn was sometimes that's the merciful thing. That is the nice thing to do because you're freeing them up to go somewhere where they will thrive more.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's fear. You don't want to hurt them. You like them as people. That can be really, really hard. And so I have waited typically too long, and that has created more damage than it should have, if that makes sense. So firing people sucks. I hate it.
Yep.
I hate it.
You got to do it though.
You got to do it. You got to do it, and you've got to not operate out of fear. But that is the hard part about running a business with that idea of I really love people, because then when you do let people go, like that just hurts.
Yeah,
that just hurts.
And you got to kind of cut those emotions a little bit,
right?
As a business owner, where you're just like, I love you. I hope you understand that. It's almost like, it's like my son, when I punish him, it's like, I hope you understand I love you.
Yeah.
But what's best for you is that what do they call it? Like hard love or whatever.
Yeah.
That you get reprimanded for this.
Yeah.
And in your case, it's you reprimand, it's seeing you later.
Yeah.
It's not working out.
Yeah. It's not a good fit. It's not working out. It's not healthy for either party. So that is something that's very difficult to master. And I don't think that I'll ever be really good at it. I don't know that I ever want to be good at it because, again, of kind of my heart for people. I just have to master being a little quicker to knowing, okay, this isn't healthy for anybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's my big lesson on the hiring and firing thing. Slow to hire, fast to fire is what you're told. I've never really been good at that part.
But the funny thing is like when you need to hire, it's like, especially when you're a startup, you're like, I need to hire now. I can't be slow. And when you need to fire, you're like, if I let go of that someone, I have to find someone else, and I've got 20 other things going on.
And like I said, I still remember several times where I let somebody go. I distinctly remember letting somebody go who had done some things wrong. Definitely the clearest firing I probably have ever done in terms of like, yeah, we know this, right? Yeah, I know. Okay. And so I still remember distinctly, though, on his way out, I said, listen, I know you always wanted to go start your own agency. I care about you, right? You were my second employee. When you go start your own thing, I'll be there to help you. I will send you business. And what is the thing I could do? What could I help you with? What could I give you that would help you get started? He said, well, I could use a website. I said, okay, next weekend, we're going to meet at Starbucks. I'm going to build you a website. And I did. And he kind of competes. I mean, we've lost business to him over the years and we've referred things back and forth. But to me, that was my gift to him. Right. And
it's also what separates you from a lot of people. The number of people that are just like cold hearted and like cut you off. And I also think it's that small town value in you. Compared to my big city, like people are disassociated, disconnected. You're just another number.
Right.
Versus like small town. I remember growing up in the town, some of you, like we started out where it was like 300 people. I remember moving to LA and my mindset in that small town was we knew everybody in the town. Everybody in the town. every single family, the ones that are crazy, the ones that are blowing their eyebrows off with firecrackers, those types of kids. And then you move to a big city and you're like, how does everybody know everybody?
Right.
That's such a
Right.
weird thing to say,
Yeah.
but that's where my mind was.
Yeah.
But people don't. They don't know each other. Last couple of questions. One, they're kind of broader questions, overarching questions. If you could attribute like one thing to all your years of success and where you have done well, and maybe overcoming your failures, because I think they kind of go hand in hand. If you could boil it down to like one thing that like this thing kind of drove me forward or kept me kind of on task, would you be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because there's a few things. My default answer tends to be mentorship, seeking out mentors, learning from other people who've been there, done that. That tends to be my default answer in terms of it's very hard to do it by yourself, right? And the more you can learn from people, the better. I remember early days, anybody I spotted, I was like, they're successful. I'm taking them to lunch. My lunch bill in the early days was sizable because I would take people to lunch. I remember distinctly Scott Sorensen with Sorensen Moving and Storage. I remember taking him to breakfast. And that guy wanted to have breakfast at like 5 a.m. Like, oh God. So like 5 a.m. breakfast, I'm half asleep asking advice from Scott Sorensen, third gen. He had a third generation business. His son was leading now too. And so mentorship was a big part of it. I went through the Ignite 360 mentor program 3 times. I went through a bunch of these mentorship type programs. I joined C12 in 2019, which is a CEO roundtable group. It was a Christian CEO roundtable group. I joined Nexus, which is another CEO group at the same time. I was in 2 CEO roundtable groups at the same time because I just want to learn from these people. So I think that's the easy answer. The other one that I often look at is kind of my personal motto of ever forward. And it's just this desire to like, okay, fall forward, continue to push forward. I forget who said it, but success is a big pile of failure that you're standing on. Not being afraid of failure is what that ever forward bit is. I know people who have all the ingredients to be successful, but are so afraid of failing that they won't do it.
Well, it took me till I was 44 to get over that failure, and those first 2 years at 44, I was like, I'm too old for this. I am so scared. That white, I can only call it a white fear where you're sweating and you're anxious and you can't sleep and you're just like, there's a level of fear that's guttural that there's times when I've had to just go to the bathroom, wake up at like 3 a.m. and I have to go to the bathroom. You know what I'm talking about? Not to go number one. You're just it's guttural and you're like, how am I gonna? And so to overcome those fears, man, I can relate with that. The second question of my last 3 is, were the Unemployables podcast, and you're clearly unemployable because to be a guest on this podcast, you have to be unemployable. And why are you? And so the question is what makes you unemployable? And in a sense that, in the best sense of the word.
Yeah, I think I don't like being boxed in, right? And I think that's it. I mean, and the funny thing is that makes me a great entrepreneur. It makes me great at doing it, but also can be a really big danger, right? Because the very thing that makes me a good entrepreneur, which is the ideas and creativity and new things and persevere and all that stuff, it's also like your biggest downfall, because I always have new ideas and I always want to try new things and I can cause chaos in my own business, right? It's a joke in the business at RPS that I just like to come in and cause chaos, right? We spend all this time building systems and I show up and say, what if we did this? And it totally undoes all the work, right? Or I make a sale that's like, look guys, what I sold. And they're like, yeah, it's not at all our process. What did you just sell, right? And so I can create chaos. And so I think that dynamic of wanting to be able to do different things and creative things and work at my own pace, right? And all of that that comes with it. And so that's probably my best answer, is just that out of the box. I don't want to be boxed in. I want to be able to invent and create and do these things. So I think that even though with the fractional work, I'm working for somebody, right? I'm on their leadership team. I'm basically employed, but I'm at my own pace. I'm doing it my way, if that makes sense. Obviously within their framework of their business, but I'm working independently, if that makes sense. And so it gives me a lot more freedom to experiment and play around. And my favorite clients, I'm their fractional CMO, chief marketing officer, but I'm doing other things. I'm helping them with their finance I'm helping them with different pieces of it. I like that. I like to be a part of their business in a bigger way. So like my favorite client, one of the times I'm their fractional CMO, and during one of the annual planning sessions, one of their team members had a little bit of a meltdown about the financial side of things, fixing some finance stuff. And I took her aside and said, "Hey, do you want me to do that?" She's like, "This is not marketing. Like, this is finance, right?" I know. I'm good at that stuff. Do you want me to take that rock, which is a quarterly goal, right? A quarterly task. And I said, "I'll take it." So that quarter, my main rock was a finance rock. And I helped solve a financial challenge within brought in a fractional chief finance officer and figured that stuff out. I like that kind of thing, right? You get hired to do a business, to do a job. You don't really tend to do that, right? So I rambled a little bit there, but maybe that's the very nature of my answer.
No, I'm fascinated on multiple levels. I'm fascinated on kind of your willingness to take on tasks, to volunteer for tasks. But what I relate with most is what you're talking about with regards to being caged. And I'm kind of in the similar place. And what I like to say is I like to put myself in my own cage.
Right.
When someone else,
there's some truth to that.
Yeah,
there's some truth to that.
Because I do believe that that's what really becomes of it. Like. It's the idea of freedom is freedom contained when you contain yourself, right? I own the keys to the cage.
Right.
As soon as I give those keys away, and I've done it, and I'll still do it at this time in life, I have this like gag reflex where I'm like, no, you're not in charge of the keys. and I've got to control that rebellious nature where I'm like, okay, I'm going to blow this thing up because you're not in charge of the keys.
Right.
And I'm like, no, Barry, don't blow it up. You still have the keys. You're just that's a client and you're just trying to work together.
Right. We're one thing that I appreciated that we're always more in charge of the keys than we think. Right? Even when we're not in charge of them. And that's something to remind ourselves of. You can always make a decision. You can always change your mind. That's something to remember. I do think sometimes I do get so hyper-focused with this ever-forward idea that I do create my own cage and I can get in the way of other people doing their thing, if that makes sense. And so I have learned that. That was a big part of me getting out of the day-to-day at RPS because I was creating chaos and I was doing things and I needed to let go of some stuff. If that makes sense.
You like come back and you're like, guys, we're going to start painting cars now. It's marketing. I'm like, no, we don't paint cars, Josh. We do digital marketing. Anyways, not the best joke, but you get what
No, it's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Like that can happen, right? And I've done it. I have done that to my team, right? We're very good at branding, we're very good at that kind of stuff. And I'm like, guys, I got this idea for a lead gen offering, and we're going to combine call centers with direct mail with digital retargeting, and we're going to do it all at the same time, and it's going to plug and play with sales teams. I mean, this whole thing, my whole team was excited about it. It was again the focus for about a year for us. We built this framework. We found a call center we partnered with. We got a mail house we partnered with, and it did not work. It did not work. Man. And I distracted the whole team for a year with that,
Painful
with this
lesson.
idea. And I still think that idea has legs if somebody was doing just that and focused on that.
Yeah.
But I was distracting the team from, and we've been much better at saying, what's our core focus? We're good at branding. Let's do that. Right. But that's an example of the chaos I created in my own company. Right. And for a whole year, we were distracted with this other idea. I called it sales engine. It was this whole thing, and it was a clever idea, but
you put yourself back in the cage.
I did. Yeah. And then we were all busy, focused on the wrong thing. Right.
Last question for you. If you could have something, if you could offer something more to the world, or if you could have one thing that more of something in this world, what would you want?
More of something. In what context?
Well, I guess at some level it's not. It could be anything at some level. You could attribute it to material. You could attribute it to like a spiritual. You could attribute it to kind of like all of humanity. It's kind of just like an end cap on kind of maybe something nice that you could offer. If you said, I wish there was more of. And lots of people have just said, one person said more time.
Right.
And other people have said, more love or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you can be more physical. I wish there were more cars in the world. I wish there whatever,
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think I'll go, and I'm gonna go deeper with it though. I think I'm gonna go with the default answer of love, mostly because it ties to the two greatest commandments: love God, love people. Right. But I think I'm not just talking about the touchy-feely, feel-good love, right? I'm talking about the hard love. I'm talking about love thy neighbor, right? I'm talking about why people mentor other people. I'm talking about why people don't rip off other people. I'm talking about that, right? Not just, fall in love, right? Which is fine, which is great, right? And you know, if our wives are watching this, both honeys, we love you. But what I'm talking
I don't tell
about,
my wife that.
right? But what I'm talking about is that love thy neighbor piece of it, right? And that typically, if you're really able to do it well, is typically coming from your relationship with God and that love, right? And so that flows through. But I think that the more we love on each other and how we treat each other, like that, because that leads to the mentorship, that leads to lifting one another up, that leads to all the other things. Almost everything we talked about today comes from a motivation of loving others, right? We talked about, like, why did I go through with that deal? Well, because I loved Justin, right? I loved on him, right? And again, in that context of love thy neighbor. So that would be my answer. I'm
with you on that 100%. During COVID, I really felt the need to love your neighbor physically. And in this time and day and age, I think it's very important that we love our neighbors and have that relationship. Super important. Well, anyways, we'll wrap at that. Josh Adams, that's the man, the myth, the legend of Rock, Paper, Simple. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm going to get you, I'm going to use some of that mentor time with you. I'm going to take
Perfect.
one of these
Let's do
days.
it.
I'm going to get in there.
Let's do it.
All right. Cool. Thank you, buddy.
Yep.